Hello and welcome back to another Warlords of Draenor Zone preview. This time I'm going to be taking a little bit of a look at the Spires of Arak. Now this zone is, well, it appears to be pretty well finished, but obviously this is still beta footage, you know, everything could change, and this could just be completely different, but at least right now, it does look rather complete. So this is really made of two different clips of me jumping around the place using Eagle Eye. The first clip mainly focuses on the actual spires and the Arakoa architecture, and then the second one focuses on the rest of the zone, including really cool things like goblins. So the first thing that I really noticed is there are less spires than I thought there would be, however the spires that there are definitely a lot larger, so that's interesting. I'm not really too sure how this zone is going to play, though one thing that I can definitely tell you is that from the ground level, it really looks impressive, and you're going to see that later on in the video. Right now, I'm just sort of jumping around from peak to peak, trying to show you the cool stuff, just, you know, to give an overall impression. So one thing that you'll really notice is the Arakoa architecture is just amazing, especially in here. There's lots of golds, and I really love the fact that there are loads of talons. The whole place just looks really, I suppose, wicked, if we were going to, you know, give it one word. And the lore of the Arakoa is actually dark enough. When you really get into it, they basically have this Talon God guy who is really pretty evil, and yeah, it's worth reading up on WoW Wiki. Maybe I'll do a lore video about it someday. But yes, what they've definitely done here is they've made architecture that just fits the race perfectly. And I really am impressed by that. I think the art direction of this expansion as a whole has just been extremely solid, and this is a continuation of that. As for the spires themselves, I think they actually look really cool. And I remember they did an art craft. By the way, we've now jumped onto my second run of footage, so we are starting here at the part of the Spires of Arak that's very close to Shadowmoon Valley, and I'll be moving down south and then up north again. So yeah, the actual spires themselves are just made out of the in-game terrain. They're not anything that's just sort of bolted on, like, say, the spires in Bladespire Mountains. Yeah. So I think they've actually done a really good job. I like the shading on them. It just, I don't know, they feel like they've got a lot of detail and depth to them, which is nice. And even though there are only a few giant ones, I think that the smaller hills and things like that still look pretty cool. And overall, running around at the ground floor of this zone should feel really nice. Of course, I can't tell you exactly. I've just had a few peeks in with Farsight. Yeah, so anyway, let's jump down into this goblin village, which is full of goblins, interestingly enough. Now, I did pop off my UI at one point. These guys are friendly, and they're actually going to be fighting the Venture Company. We'll find the Venture Company in a minute. So this is essentially just some of the standard goblin architecture that we have come to know since the Cataclysm Goblin stuff, which is fair enough. I think it looks quite goblin-y, I guess. I really did like the older style of goblin stuff, but I suppose this one does work as well. Yeah, I'm not really too sure why the goblins are here, actually. It really was rather out of the blue when I first noticed that. I was just kind of thinking to myself, like, what? Goblins? Here? What? But no, they're here. I suppose that the Venture Company, who you can just see off there in the distance, are trying to get some of the natural resources of the Spires of Arak, and therefore, for some reason, our friendly goblins are here trying to fight them off. And that's fine. They can usually make some interesting fun quests with the goblins and gnomes, and this appears, at least so far, to be some of the only goblin/gnome activity that I've seen in the expansion. There are a few of them roaming around in the ground, though. Anyway, so not really 100% too sure on what is going on with the Venture Company, but they're certainly here. So with all that looked at, let's move around the other side of the zone. Now, the Spires of Arak is actually long and thin. Really, when you think about it, like, here's me at the very bottom tip of the south that points into the ocean, and you can just see there the actual width isn't ginormous. However, it's quite a long zone. Yeah, so that's what's going on there. Right, I did decide on this clip just to take us back up to the Arakoa architecture, because you know what? It's just so damn cool. And they've got these little raven guys flying around as well, and they look really nice. Soon we'll actually see some Ravager stuff, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Yeah, it's definitely a good evolution of the Arakoa architecture that we saw in Outland, because that stuff was sort of similar to this in style, but it was a bit shit. It wasn't made of like this regal gold. I think I remember Blizzard saying that the Arakoa are kind of, well, a bit proud and up themselves. yet, you know, still have their whole sort of savage brutality stuff, you know, wickedness going on. And the architecture definitely sort of conveys that. You've got the savageness conveyed by all the harsh points and talons and spikes, and then, of course, the pride, sort of conveyed by all the rich colors, the golds, the purples, and they're very fancy, I've got to say. They really are a bunch of fancy guys. Now, I'm a little bit... I don't want to say disappointed, but I would have liked to see more, honestly, in terms of their architecture. Right now, it just seems like there's one big thing here in the middle, and not a great deal else. I'd imagine that stuff will be added, though. This zone actually is not even open for playtesting. I can't even speak sometimes. Yes, the zone is not open for playtesting yet. So, yeah, like, a lot of stuff could change and be added, and hopefully it does. I'd imagine that when we actually do get into the zone, if there are any glaring problems, the Blizzard will fix them. They usually are pretty keen to do that. Okay, so I'll be getting some more on the ground level shots here. At least in a minute or two I will. And the zone definitely comes into its own when you see it from that perspective. Alright, so here is a orc, I think it's an orc encampment that is basically, well, full of dead orcs and the old Arakoa. As it seems like the new Arakoa model has been removed in the current build. However, there are some pictures floating around the internet of them. I honestly think they look really cool. They're basically tall, they're not all twisted and corrupted, and yeah, they just look really, really just, look, cool, okay? They're cool. Hopefully I can move down into the, into the sort of under layer of this zone a little bit, so I can show you that. There we go. Alright, so first thing you notice is you feel dominated. Like, everything is so much taller than you. There's always something kind of crazy looming in the distance, which is just a theme that I found in many of the zones here. There's always something cool to look at. And yeah, this just works really well. Now, this area that I'm in at the minute is a little bit more dull because of all this dense forest cover that's got going on. But I think you can definitely see that throughout this zone, you're going to get some really cool views. And once again, if you could fly, I don't think this would be an impressive zone at all, actually. But the lack of flying should just make this more interesting, because obviously you'll be sort of down there with all these spires looming way above you instead of, flying at 30,000 feet. Now, they appear to be two Alliance and Horde, well, one Alliance and one Horde garrison. Of course, the garrisons were originally going to be something you could have in any zone and just sort of, switch them out. So you could have one in Shadow Moon and then you could move that to somewhere else. Now we've got outposts instead of that, so you can have your main garrison and then an outpost in every zone, so I suppose technically it's less choice, but you get more overall. Anyway, that's basically it for the video. I think that was a really nice ending shot to leave it on. It just, this zone's so cool. Anyway, yeah, let me know what you think about it. It's definitely one of the more unique, new sort of zones. And actually, I streamed a little bit of my exploration in here in my stream last night, and overall, the opinion from the chat was really, really positive, so yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy this too. Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.